Hello, happy new year. It is what, day 2 or 3? 3 days into the new year. I have been in like a weird little bubble where I'm just like being. And I feel like from a lot of people I've talked to, we're all kind of in this little like giving ourselves permission not to do what we feel like we have to do. So if that's you, then congrats for following what your soul is asking you to do. I think it's important that we're all resting right now because, as I always love to talk about, the energies when they get high and when we get these pulses of like high vibrational energy to lift the planet, it can really mess with us. So even if we're pretty high vibrational already, like we get really tired, we might have some symptoms, we might have some old stuff coming up. And then, all the way down to like, if you're really like doing your work and in the highs and lows, it can be a really tough time right now where everything feels really overwhelming. And if you're completely unaware of your own work and consciousness and whatever, then life just sucks, and it probably sucks more than usual, because these higher vibrational energies, like I say every time, when they're coming from our sun and affecting our earth and affecting every being on this earth, that higher vibrational energy is out of resonance with the lower vibrations that we hold on to, which are, our traumas and negative energies that are created by the shitty thought patterns that we perpetuate in our lives. And so that stuff just has to go. Like when our base resonance is higher than that, like it's just shaking until you finally are like, okay, yeah, I'm going to let it go. I'm going to move through it, or I'm going to pay attention to it. And so just be gentle with yourself. Rest a lot, have water, do the things you can do, set the boundaries, all of that stuff. But that's not exactly why I came on today. I came on, I don't know, there's been a couple of things I really wanted to talk about. And I think I'm just going to tie in together two of the things right now. The story that we tell is freaking everything. Everything. And it's so annoying for me to have to say this now or teach this lesson or whatever, to be on the other side of it, because I definitely heard people tell me this. I've heard all along, like, you have to change the story. It starts with your thoughts. You get what you think about. You got to retrain your brain to have more positive thoughts so that you can create more positive things in your life. Like, we all know this, right? But for me, even though I knew it, it was like impossible for me to put into full practice. And so even though I would practice it, there's like a lot of different nuances in this practice. So, when people are like, okay, just read positive affirmations and then you're going to create that in your life, like, hell no, that's not how it works. If you're reading positive affirmations about how amazing you are and how rich you are, and you're poor and you don't feel amazing, you're not going to believe yourself. And maybe like over hundreds of thousands of millions of repetitions, you might start to believe yourself, but you're not going to stick with the practice long enough because it feels like such a push energy. It feels like it's not working. It feels like it's stupid and pointless, because you don't line up with it. And so the first thing that I had to learn was that when I'm setting affirmations or stepping into new beliefs or things like that, I need to word it in a way that I can get behind. So instead of I'm rich and, amazing, I used affirmations like I'm learning more and more about how to magnetize money. I'm seeing more and more money show up in my life. I'm noticing more ways that I receive that aren't even money related. I'm open to receiving more every day. I'm getting more and more ideas about how to make money. Things like that like you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I can actually see that. And then the more that you say that and the more that you see it, the more it confirms it in your reality. And then you can step up, as you go. So as you start to receive more, you're like, my life is full of abundance. I see abundance in my life every day. And it becomes more true. Like you become more certain about it because you're seeing the proof in your life. And so that's just an important little tip anyway with affirmations, is always like, don't just take an affirmation because someone said say this affirmation. Like if that affirmation resonates in your heart and you're like, yes, that's me, then say that affirmation. If it doesn't, then change it to something that does serve your heart and does make sense for you and does tell a better story from where you are. Because, I think I've said this before, there's like an emotional scale where you're like, I can't remember all like exactly how it goes, but it's like shame and anger and fear and grief and like hope and whatever. But you go up the scale. You can't go from like anger or fear all the way to joy. You know what I mean? Like you can't just go from 0 to 100. You have to find a better feeling place from where you are. And so if you're in shame and depression, that could be anger. And so you have to celebrate, like, yes, I felt something today, and that's way better than feeling nothing, right? And then you move through the anger, and then, maybe you've got, fear or hope or whatever. You come to a lot of different levels before you get to where you're going. And so you have to honor that because we're human and we have to work with our minds. And so with that being said, the other really cool thing that a lot of you, I'm sure, have heard of this and maybe even learned about it in depth, but it never hurts to have a reminder. And I hesitate to not say it because, again, like I said in my last video, a lot of times we think like, oh, everybody knows this. They don't. They don't know it. A lot of people do, especially the people we're hanging out with every day because we are talking about it. But there are like a whole bunch more people that we're not talking to that maybe haven't heard of this or maybe haven't learned how this actually like plays into your life and how you can use it as a tool. So what I'm talking about is the Reticular Activating System. This is a system that your brain uses to filter out reality. And so what I mean by that is that, so we know that we only use a very small part of our conscious mind, and our subconscious mind is like huge, right? It's like the iceberg below the water. And also that our subconscious mind maps to our body, and that's where we hold our trauma and things like that. And so that's important to note. But side note, the reticular activating system, what it does is that if we didn't have some sort of filtration system on our brain, the amount of stimulus that we're like experiencing just in this moment right here, like in terms of things that we can see, feel, taste, touch, notice, whatever, we would be overwhelmed all the time because there's too much data coming in any given moment. And so in order to, save us from going insane and into like overload, our mind focuses on just what's important to us. And so this filter is developed over our lives, right? And we've talked before about how from age 0 to 7, your mind is unconscious. It's like it's your unconscious mind is completely wide open like a sponge. It's soaking in every little thing that happens to you and it's making it a part of who you are, right? And so a lot of your reticular activating system is also formed during that time. And basically the RAS is for short. What it does is it filters out things in the world based on what your mind says is important to you. So if you grew up being, how can I say this? Like if you grew up being programmed with ideas and beliefs that, lack and scarcity is normal, that money is hard to come by, that work is really hard, that you have to work really hard to get anywhere, any limiting beliefs like that, or that love is not safe, or love is, like it makes you owe someone, or, love is self-sacrifice, or whatever these beliefs are that are kind of like not in alignment. If you grew up with those beliefs, your mind has the reticular activating system to only look for and notice those particular scenarios in your environment. So when you think about, so you can retrain this reticular activating system to look for new things, right? But you have to consciously do that. You have to consciously feed your mind new thoughts in the way of affirmations, like I said, or, hypnosis or guided meditation tracks, or hanging out with people who think the way you want to think, cultivating or like, cleaning out your news feed of things that aren't, in the direction of thought where you're going, like positivity or supportive, like kind of clearing out like the people who are negative Nellies or triggering and things like that. Because when you cultivate your mind space and you really start to make headway in that, it becomes easier and easier. So like I said in the beginning, I had a really hard time overcoming my mind, because my mind is so cemented in its ways. Like, it's so logical, and it just wants to know, and it wants to make sure that it's right, and it wants to make sure that like everything is the way it thinks it's supposed to be. But what we have to realize is our minds, the way it thinks it's supposed to be, isn't always right because of that programming and because of like the things that our RAS is programmed with that we don't know. And so like a great example of our reticular activating system, just to give you a little bit more of an idea, is like when you buy a new car and then you see that new car everywhere, because now you've turned on the filter for that car in your mind. That's important to you now, and so your mind shows it to you. When I dyed my hair pink, I thought like it was kind of a new thing. Like, I'd seen it here and there, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go pink, fun. I'd seen it, a few people do it, some leading edge, whatever, but I didn't see it as a daily thing. I was so amazed after I dyed my hair pink. I saw at least 2 people a day with pink hair. It was insane. I was like, where have all these pink haired people been? Like, why are they showing up now? My reticular activating system clued my mind in that was something that was like in my reality that I should look for, and then it started showing up everywhere. Another way that this is fun to play with is like, if you've ever heard of people who teach manifestation, or if you listen to Abraham Hicks at all, like to set the intention that you want to see something weird or magical, and then look for it in your reality that coming week. And as you forget that you even set that intention, you'll start to notice that those things show up. So that can be like in the form of like, a green feather or something. Like, where the heck do you ever see a green feather? And you set the intention like, okay, I'm gonna prove to myself that this works. Green feather. And you really like picture it and focus on it, and then wait for that to show up in your reality. And it's pretty fucking weird because it does. And so think about the power of that, right? Because like, it's very easy. And like I said, I've been learning this lesson for years before it finally was like, oh, wait, now I see how it's working. But like, think about the power of that. Like, once you've trained yourself to pay attention to what you're saying, think about how overwhelmingly unsupportive your thoughts are in most cases. Like, they're usually beating you up for things, or bitching and complaining, and really focused on what's not right, and really focused on what you want to be different, and yearning for things that you don't have, or whatever. So like, if you think about, those are the thoughts that you're thinking, you're telling your mind that's what's important to you. Your mind thinks that it's important to find scenarios to fulfill these fantasies that you constantly ruminate over in your mind. And so like, when I was younger, I mean, not even younger, I was older, but like before I realized this stuff, ask anybody who knew me, like, I always had these crazy fucking dramas happening all the time. It was like, you're not gonna believe what happened to me today. And it was almost like I was addicted to the drama, and I didn't know it. You know what I mean? Like, my mind was looking for opportunities to create drama. And that's an energy, right? And so I would be automatically resonating or drawn to or pulled into situations, or just synchronistically, divine timing, meet up with the right people to fulfill that story that goes on in my head, that weird shit happens to me all the time, that like, I meet up with weird people who do the weirdest things, and like, things don't go my way, and it's not my fault, And it was funny. Like, some of the stories were really funny. And I remember my friend saying like, Jesus, you should have a freaking reality show. It's insane how this stuff happens. But it kept happening because I kept believing in it, right? And so same with like people who always get their order screwed up at the drive-thru, right? Always. They expect it. So it continues to happen. Like, I can't tell you how simple it freaking is. And like, when you notice you're doing that, like, how do you get out of that, right? Because it's a thought you keep thinking. And And so it becomes a belief, because a belief is just a thought you keep thinking. So you believe that drive-thrus suck and they can never get anything right. But here I am going through the drive-thru and they never screw my order up. So, you know what I mean? Like, it really is. And that didn't used to be my story. So it really is important to be aware of the story you're telling, and to tell the story the way you want it to be, right? Because that's the other thing. Like, we basically, like, we hear this too, like, we're projecting our reality out. Like, everything you see is actually within. Okay, yeah, whatever. But when you really start to understand that lesson on deeper and deeper levels, because you'll revisit it, like, you know it, I know you get it, but then, like, you'll hit a different level of consciousness where you kind of understand the world and how you're interacting in it, and understand yourself a little more, and then you'll see that lesson from a different perspective. And maybe this is that day, I don't know. But when you finally, sorry, I keep messing with my hair because the pink was not a good idea. This is a real side tangent, but I really damaged my hair a lot, so I have these little breakage pieces. Sorry. Anyway, so this is actually important, so forget that. So basically, we know that we project our reality, but to the extent that we know it, I think sometimes we need to really understand that it's more than we think. So when we're born, we're our own little projector. We're making our own little movie, right? We are the main star of our movie. Like, we're creating who we are, and then we're projecting what we know out into the world, and it's being reflected back to us, and we're creating it. So we're the projector, the director, the producer, and the main actor of our movie. We get to fucking write the script. And then we get to act it out, and we get to do it based on what we want to see and how we want it to go, just as if we were making up a make-believe story or writing a movie script, whatever. But what happens is we have this conditioning generationally that, like, doesn't allow that to happen, because I'm sure you, like me, when you came in, you weren't the main actor of your movie. Your parents were trying to get in and be the main actor of your movie. They were telling you you couldn't do that and you needed to do it this way instead, and making you feel wrong for what you wanted in your movie. And so you learn to allow other people to direct your movie, and you learn that you're not really in control of your own movie. And it's all a fucking lie, because you still are. You've just given control over to another person, right? And as we get older, this kind of shows up in ways that, like, so keep in mind, this is every person. So even your mother is in her own movie, directing her own movie, producing her own movie, acting in her own movie. It's all about her. Every single thing she experiences, even when she's talking to you, is all about her. She doesn't know that. She doesn't think that. She's trying to do better for everyone else, but it's really ultimately about her. But she has also learned the same lessons that you've learned, and she's not in charge of her own movie. And by the time she gets to adulthood, who the fuck's in charge of her movie? No one's telling her what to do. She's running on like a auto rerun of all the movies and all the things that everyone told her to do before, right? So who she is now is a product of the movie that she's created by allowing other people to create her movie, okay? And then she comes in, and you're here, like, kind of stepping into your own, like, maybe creating your own movie now in your own life, and kind of not resonating with her movie anymore. And, like, I don't need to listen to you. I'm a fucking grown up. And this is not about my mother, by the way. I'm just using a mom as an example. But I have been triggered by my mom. Who hasn't, right? And so your mom comes in, and maybe your mom's someone who's, like, nitpicky or trying to make you do something or whatever. And when she comes in and she's like, why are you doing it that way? Da, 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 da. You automatically feel like you're not good enough. Like, you know, she thinks I'm doing it wrong. She is trying to, like, take over my movie here. And it's like a really ick feeling, right? And so depending on who you are and what your programming is and where you are in your growth, you may give in to that. You may have certain patterns that you play out with her, where you allow her to come in and start to tell your movie and start to feel how she thinks you should feel about your movie. Or you can decide, no, this is my movie. This is the way I'm doing it. And I see you over here, but you're not a main character in my movie. Not anymore. You're a supporting role. You're doing your own movie. And you can understand that all of her projections on you that are making you feel bad and not good enough and like you don't know what you're doing or wrong are about her, not about you. They're coming from her. They're in her movie. They're her projection. They're her creation. All of this not good enough, or you need to do it different. It's not yours until you allow her to come in and take over your movie. Don't allow her to do that. And again, that's just an example. I don't have that particular issue with my mom at all. She's always very much like allowed me to just be the rebel and do the thing and love me through it. So I love that. But I think it's a really common example. And like I said, I've had different, issues. I think I've even had that issue with her at some point when I was younger. Who knows? But I didn't know that I was in control of my movie for a very long time. And so we have to understand there's like so many pieces at play with this because, with your reticular activating system and like changing your thoughts, you're resistant to changing the thoughts because thoughts create a chemical reaction in your body. You have the thought, and then all of a sudden it triggers these receptors in your nervous system to create certain chemicals, to feel certain emotions. And even though we judge those emotions as bad and we say we don't want them and we try to avoid them and we're like, no, positive thinking, we're going to go this way. They're still there. They need attention, first of all, to move out of your physical body. So you have to pay attention to them at some point. But then once you've paid attention to them and moved out and you find yourself in these repetitive loops of the same shit happening over and over again, and you can't find a way to tell your way out of the story, it's like there's work to do there because your body has a chemical addiction to the responses that those thoughts create. So even though it's a perceivably negative experience or feeling or reaction to those negative thoughts, your body feels safe there. Your nervous system feels safe there. So when you cut it off from its supply of negativity and you start going positive, your body isn't like, oh, okay, let's hop on this train and get the benefit of that. Your body's like, fuck no, that is uncomfortable. That does not feel good. I'm not used to support. I'm not used to pleasure. I'm used to this over here. Like, I want more of the stress responses. I want more of this, like what we know, right? It's like when you live in the ghetto and there's shots around you all the time, gunshots, you don't feel unsafe. You start to kind of, adapt. We're so adaptable, right? So you've adapted to this way of being and it's not your fault. Like it's passed down and we don't know and no one tells us we have the power. But once you do know, you can be assured that if you want to tell your own story, you want to make the change, that the tools will fall into your lap. So there are so many different tools and so many different ways to tackle this and, different nuances in like each person and how they experience this growth and this up-leveling through this, this particular issue, which is something that everyone kind of needs to overcome to become the creator of their own life. But that's where you kind of need to get individualized support. But just know that like it is going to be difficult to get your mind out of those patterns because you're literally an addict to the chemicals in your body that it's creating. But you can create yourself to be addicted to pleasure, to be addicted to joy, to be addicted to things that are happening in the present moment that feel good. You just have to choose it and you have to step in and direct that fucking movie. Let the fucking actors that are trying to support and get in and tell the director what to do, tell them to get the fuck out. It's not their movie. And if you can't tell them to get the fuck out, then just set those clear boundaries so that you're supported with what you're creating and believe in yourself because you can do it. If I can fucking do it, you can do it. I promise you that. Because I've been, like I said, a hot mess. So stubborn. Ask anyone. Like, I'm so stubborn. As I came into like my intuitive gifts and like understanding my intuition and what I was supposed to be doing, like my mind has been like literal cement. And I have had my friend Holly, who's also intuitive and can, read guides and things like that, like literally give me the message of like cement thinking. You need to let go of the cement thinking. And we all do. We need to let go of that cement thinking because we think we know. We think we know how things are. And when we think we know, there's no room to learn. And luckily that's a thing that I sort of knew subconsciously for so long and was able to let in easily because like I do feel like I know a lot of things, I know a lot of stuff, but to know and not to do or put into practice, you may as well not know it. And so you need to be open to knowing more so that you can figure out the pathways to actually make this information work for you. So the story that we tell is everything. What story are you telling about yourself? So as we go into this new year, what story are you growing into? Who are you going to be? And when we think about that, this was kind of a side topic, but I'm just going to throw it in there now because it is New Year's. Sort of. I'm late, but that's okay. Speaking of that, late and New Year's, let me not forget what I was going to say, but I read something today. I'm all into energy and like astrology and charts, and I've been learning more and more about that as I go through this phase of my life, because I'm learning about gene keys and energy transits and things like that. And so basically, energetically and like also supported by facts in the in the astrological system or whatever, our new year doesn't really start until January 21st or January 22nd. I think it depends on the year. I've got to read and learn a little bit more about it. It actually doesn't start until the 21st. And so what happens, like think about how we all do our goals and start on the 1st, and then we're like, yeah, and we lose steam because the energy isn't here to support us yet for moving and pushing into the new. Right now, we're supposed to be still in this reflection period of like reflecting on the past year and planning for the new year. And then as of the 21st, the energy swaps over and kind of pushes us forward into the momentum that we need to get these things going. Whereas if we start pushing in, the beginning of January and the energy is not supporting us and it's kind of pulling against us because we should be resting, and we're pushing on our goals, then by the time the 21st gets here, we're already pretty burnt out. We've already not been it's well known that by February, everyone's on the goal train. And this is why, because we're burning ourselves out before we're even ready to hit the gas. So don't feel like you have to do right now, whatever your goals are. But also, this is where I was kind of coming back to, is with goals. Goals are a very masculine energy, right? They're very cut and dry. It's like you either hit the goal or you didn't, and so it's like you either pass or you fail. You either did a good job or you sucked. And so thinking when you're reflecting on last year and thinking about the things you didn't do from your last year's goal, maybe it's not a good feeling, right? And then even the things you did do, if you didn't hit the actual goal, but you made progress, you're still not really able to celebrate the progress because you didn't make the goal. And I see people trying to change that, this year, last year especially, and I'm sure it was going on before. People are choosing a word for the year instead, right? I'm going to choose the word, I don't know. I'm trying to think of someone's word, courage, right? I'm going to choose courage for this year, and then embody that in everything I do. And I think that's such a much better way to do it. But I would implore you, more than just a word, to find a frequency, right? And so each word carries its own frequency, but by not pigeonholing it into a word, it opens us up for more expansion, for more experience, for more growth on that frequency. So if you're doing a frequency of courage, that's an underlying vibrational energy in everything that you do, right? Instead of just a pinhole idea of where you think you should be courageous. One of my words is intimacy, and it is to do everything from this pure, authentic part of myself where I'm fully connected and fully open with another person, where I'm not shutting down or hiding or trying to be something that I'm not, where to me, that intimacy is so scary and vulnerable. And I've been going through it in my relationship, all of my relationships really. And I'm going through it with you guys this. I'm really showing up in full authenticity. And sometimes it's scary, a little. For me, I'm overcoming the fear and it feels like excitement more now. But that's been, a mind flip. That's been me training my reticular activating system to feel these feelings and interpret them as something different, so that I don't just hide and never share my message. So that I'm yeah, no, I'm going to show up. And if people fucking hate me, that's okay. They weren't for me. So Intimacy, courage was another one of mine, courage and love, and overall magic, like magic and pleasure. So I'm picking a lot of frequencies because I want a full life this year. And if I'm embodying intimacy, courage, love, and magic and pleasure, holy shit, what's my year gonna be like? Like next year, when I look back with those 5 words as the frequency that I embodied, that I underpinned in everything I did, that I didn't make a decision unless it was out of one of those particular energies, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. And there's going to be no loss. There's going to be no like I didn't make it, because if I'm infusing everything I do with these pure high vibrational frequencies that I am excited about, then obviously whatever they bring me during the year is going to be a win. Like a win-win-win no matter what. And so then I'm also not limiting myself by like, I want to make $100,000 a month, right? Like, yes, I want that. That'd be fucking amazing. But like, what if I could have more? What if, you know what I mean? Like, what if by embodying all of these traits, I far surpass that, Like, let's just leave it open. And not that I need more than that, but I'm just saying that rather than setting masculine goals with like a win or fail, kind of vibe to them, let's just expand into the energies that we feel like we want to embody, and it can be more than one, and so that's my whole message for today. This is 30 minutes, so I'll let you guys go. I love you so much, and I promise I will be showing up just to share these weird little things more and more. I really like to write too, and so I'm finding more time to write, and so I'll probably be posting up more novels of my thoughts here and there too. I think I'm going to start moving stuff over to my blog on my website so it's easier to find. I also have a YouTube channel, so everything that's on there is really old now, so don't go if you want, you can, but like whatever. But I'm gonna put some new stuff up there. I'm also super excited to be working on this oracle deck with my art. I have 2 oracle decks, one that's in completion and one that we're just starting, and they're both 2 completely different modalities, and just so cool. So I can't wait to be sharing that stuff with you this year. And we'll be starting a podcast for the first oracle deck with my friend Holly, so I will be letting you guys know about that. But and also my mastermind is coming up. I know I mentioned that on the other one, but keep it in mind and keep feeling into it. Like, if you like to watch my stuff and you like my content, you're gonna fucking love being in the mastermind. It's just really cool. It's got everything. Like, it's got the practical stuff with a spin on it, because it's like it's like a little bit of everything that I've learned over the years, and so it's not like anything else. It's a completely new system that I created based on how I moved through these energies, how I hit each step, and being stubborn and hard to get through to sometimes with these lessons. I feel like it's really invaluable to other people to learn it this way, because it's really the key to go through it in this particular setup or whatever, like through these particular steps, because it provides you the foundation so that you're not like floating up in your head with all these ideas and all this like but you can't do it, because you're like blocked and stuck and you don't know what the fuck is missing. Every step of the way I've been there, like in this cloud of like, why can't I still do it? And then when the cloud would like dissipate, I'd be like, oh. And so this is just a culmination of all of those lessons, and I'm like super excited to be sharing them with you guys. So yeah, I love you. I'll talk to you later. Happy New Year!